Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this drawing. I think the right side is pretty good. I think this one's a little bit better. This one's um, a little bit lopsided. So let's make a little bit of corrections here. Okay, so if you look at the angle, let's draw an X here to here, and we connect it. This bottom angle has to be the same, and you're pretty close, but I would say, okay, so let's make this straighter. And so what I'm going to do is drop this area down so that you have the same, like I said, this is a little bit straighter, but we want it to be a little bit more angled. Okay. So I'll slowly sort of erase some of these lines that you have. Okay, so this one's not bad. You just have to connect it to here. Okay, so that's easy. Keep this angle the same, so bring this up on the back. Okay, make sure this is straight up and down. So that looks good. Let's erase this other line. Okay, so here's the trick. When you draw your window, okay, don't treat this like a separate thing. This angle has to be the same. Okay. Same angle. And you did a pretty good job here at the same angle. This one's a little bit tricky. So pretty close. And then you're bringing it out too far. Just draw a line straight up and down. Okay. And then you can start your curvature. So if you can see, this is the proper angle that you should have. Mostly because of mathematical things. Like I said, you see this one here, you actually have it correct. You see that? That lines up with this angle perfectly. And that lines up with that. Here, you have this line going too straight. So we have to redo this. And try not to treat each side as if it's independent. It's still a box. So don't let that throw you off. I think that's what's happening here. So even before you get into the details of drawing the pillars, your angles have to match. So it looks like this one, the pillars are longer. Okay. This angle's out too far. We're just going to make it straight. Straighten this out. Okay. Let's see. This one. Make that straight. Make that straight. Apply the curvature. Okay. Let's make some small corrections here. And again, there's nothing. It's not like there's anything really wrong with your drawing. It's just the angles are incorrect. That's mostly it. Okay. I mean, I'm not going to erase it all, but that way you can kind of see a little bit clearly. Okay, so this isn't too bad. I think there's also another approach that you can go by, and that would be, again, doing this kind of methodical approach. If you had a ruler, then you would want to draw lines and get the space correct. Like you have to decide how what the distance is. Of course, I'm not using a ruler here. I'm sort of freehanding it. And then make them all the same, and then go in and make your tiles. Other than that, that's basically all the correction that you would need. As you can see, overlaid. Okay. Yeah, it's just mostly about your angles. Let's do a couple of object drawings, and we'll break them down as, you know, kind of what seems to make the most sense, and that way you can get an idea. Okay, so first thing for me, I'm going to try and find where this center line is, okay? So, because that's going to tell me, like, there's a driving force of this angle. You could make, want to make like a angle like that, okay? You don't have to do this, but I think it's like super helpful. Okay. And then I'm going to build my object around that. So again, we're just going for understanding. Okay. So that's this area. I'm going to draw the outer. Okay. This might be a little sketchy. Okay, so I can see it's got like a little bit of a lip. But again, I'm just treating this all like cylinders. Okay. And in fact, I'll simplify it so that it doesn't have to look exact. We just have to know how it's constructed. So this back area is basically a plate. Something like this. And that handout that you sent me is really great because what you're doing is practicing drawing shapes. Okay, let's see if we can draw through this. There we go. Oops. Let's delete some of these lines. Okay. Okay. So now let's extend through the form. And let's finish the back. Again, this is just a cylinder. The thing to understand is how to see this in their basic forms. Okay, so the handle area, I'm just going to draw like the bottom end of this. Same thing. Okay, now I'm going to curve the back. Same thing with the trigger. I don't, some of this stuff you can just kind of figure out. Now the thing is, you can draw from photos if you want, because part of it's a little bit easier because it doesn't matter that the angle's the same even if you move your head. Okay, so remember when I drew my line, this is where I find it to be kind of helpful. Just round that off. And then this bottom part is a little bit like a cone. Just for a really short area. And then the rest of it is a box. Or a rectangle, however you want to see it. And it's not straight up and down, it's got a little angle to it. Now here's the thing to remember anytime you're drawing. This angle, this angle, this angle, this angle are all basically the same. This angle and this angle should be the same. So whenever you're checking your work, if something looks wrong, check your angles to make sure that they all agree, if that makes sense. Okay, so one object down. Let's do another one. Draw what you know first. For me, the easiest thing to see is this. Okay, and then notice where this is at. This is the actual center. So it's up. And then you can draw a little circle. And then I'm just going to stack more circles on top of each other. Okay, so what you're learning here is really actually kind of hard because this is perspective and shape drawing, and this is the majority of what's so difficult about drawing. Okay, so this object, because of its size. Okay, so here we go. So the rest, this is basically a sphere. Try and get it. Okay. I'll do a little erasing here. So notice how many strokes it took me. I don't think anyone would expect you to do it in one stroke. Okay, so how do we keep this in line? You could start with the front or you could start with the back. If you start with the front, just make a line and then draw. Keep the angle the same. So we see that. So I'm going to draw a line. Okay. So, this needs to be fixed. This is down too far. So this needs to come up. And then immediately you can see that that's way better. So if that came up, then this part has to come up just a tiny amount. There we go. So that means you're looking down, and this is a fairly extreme angle, and you can see there's a shadow down there. Now these are two separate angles, very different angles of objects. Okay, so now the next one. Okay, so this is going to be the last object. Now, again, let's try to find ways to make this simple to work for us. So first thing is I like to draw a line straight up and down from, just because it makes more sense to me to do that. Okay, I'm actually going to draw two lines, but the first one is going to be there. Okay, now the second one is going to be here, and that's because I want to have a guide. And it doesn't have to, again, these things can move around. Like if you screw up and you're like, oh, it's not where I wanted it, then just move it. Okay, so let's start from the top and let's work our way to the bottom. So let's make a line. That's going to indicate the top. And then let's just, when you're going to make a line, notice this has an angle. Okay, so don't make it straight across. This is straight across, but this is not. So it's very important when you're drawing objects is to pay attention to what the angles of things are. Okay, so now let's just break this top part down. Let's guess. I'm going to guess that it's like this long. Okay, so now let's just draw this as a little tube. Okay, just kind of like I did with this one. We're really just going to simplify how we see this, how we imagine this thing is constructed. Okay, so from here to here, it's another tube. It's just short. Okay, so it stops like right there. Okay, I'm going to make the effort to make that curved line. Okay, from here, let's just look at this section. This section here looks like the top part is a circle, but it could be kind of a wedge. Something like that. Do you see that? Okay, so that's what I'm going to draw. Oh, my little mistake there. Okay, that's where I want it to come out. And I'm going to go ahead and, you see this line? This line is straighter than this one. Okay. I think this line has to come down, but we'll fix that in a bit. Okay, so the rest of this is basically that's the rest of the object. Okay, other than the fact that it might be round, but it's kind of like a book shape. So we'll just keep that line straight. And then meet this. Keep this line straight because you want to indicate the thickness. Okay. So there you have it. Now let me fix this section. I'm actually going to raise this area up a bit to match. And then just lower this one a smidge. Okay. So now let's make a little effort and let's start making this specific. So what's cool about drawing is when you can successfully draw things in their correct perspective. And the trick is to understand what you're looking at so that you're not fooled by things, because the way that you get fooled is by looking at this object and registering in your mind like, oh, that's an oil can. Yeah, it is, but it's also just like a container, right? That you can break up into different things. Like this is the bottom half, this is the upper section, and then this is the top half. And when you think in those ways, same thing that happened here, you can literally draw pretty much anything as long as you can break it down into things that make sense. So I'm going to send you this, and then I will send you those pictures. Hopefully this helps.